We are live. Hello, everyone. Hello, Broncos country. And welcome to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I am your co host, Ron White. This way is my partner in crime, Thomas Hall. How are you doing, Thomas, on this gorgeous Saturday?
Yeah, doing good. Yeah, trying to beat the heat, but like I told you, working out in the garage. It's nice and hot out there, trying to get some stuff done. But yeah, it's going good, and I'm excited. For camp, it's almost here, so we're actually going to have some live football going on. Really, I mean, not televised or anything, but some real football. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yes, most definitely some real live action on the
Hmm.
horizon. So that's definitely exciting. And yep, same here in Atlanta, trying to beat the heat as well. Did some yard work today. So always about those bushes and cutting the grass.
Right.
More of that today, but yeah, all is good there. And from the top rope, we got David McGrath coming in with a $10 super chat. We appreciate you, David. Thank you very much. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Thomas, Ron, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag 7 days. Hashtag 12 and 5. Buckham 3 times. Yes. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life." Again, David, thank you for coming in the top rope. We appreciate you, my guy, and coming in with a record prediction as well. I like it. 12 and 5. Yeah, that's a again, that's not out of the realm of the possible. I think with the moves that have been made, competing with Kansas City for the division, I think that can definitely happen. But again, the Broncos still have a lot to prove. Get out there and put in the work, and we'll see where it goes from there. But again, thank you, my guy.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks for the super chat, David. Appreciate it. But the thing of it is that there seems to be turmoil going on and a little bit in the other AFC West foes, right? Except for the Broncos seem to be smooth sailing. I saw Chris Jones is not reporting to camp because he's
Hmm.
unhappy about his contract. The
Yep.
Chargers, they have an unhappy running back. The Raiders, they've got a little turmoil going on. So, maybe the Broncos are going to be the ones setting, smooth sailing right into the start of the season, which will be great. So we'll see how it goes. But so far, so good.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm glad you brought up, that Raiders Josh Jacobs. I know the running back market has been there's been a
Yeah.
lot of turmoil just in general with the running back market. So if we don't see a Jacobs sighting week one, I think Broncos fans should be happy, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, week one without Josh Jacobs, he tends to play his best games when he's playing the Broncos. So it will be nice to. I mean, I don't really care. I think the Broncos need to go out there and just need to win with people at full strength. But it doesn't hurt to have a little turmoil going on and people missing for sure. So it's good. It's good stuff.
yes.
I
Yes.
want to jump in here, say hi to Michael, saying good evening, Thomas and Ron on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos and Buckham. Michael's always supporting us with Facebook stars. So thank you very much, Michael. Really, really appreciate that. We got Dom coming in also saying from Facebook saying, good evening, Thomas, Ron, Scott, and Broncos country. 6 days till camp. Can't wait. Denver Broncos for life. Yeah, absolutely. And then we have a Facebook book user. So obviously the name's not coming through saying, good evening, Thomas, Ron, Scott, and Broncos country, Denver Broncos for life. Thank you all for the support. Really appreciate it, as always. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you guys for coming in. We appreciate it, your generosity. So, yeah, so we got Todd Alstendorf coming in here, and this is a good segue to the topic that we are going to discuss here. Thank you, Todd. He says Fry will compete with Maher. However, might the Broncos watch the waiver wire once rosters are cut to 53 players and bring in yet another kicker? And that's very possible, Todd. That's an interesting perspective. It's going to be, we'll see how this competition goes between Fry and Maher coming up, but that could definitely be out of the within the realm of the possible, right? Just because we've seen Sean Payton sometimes with the kicker kind of wait all the way down to the wire. This may not even be resolved in training camp, so and that could be a possibility of, he may not like, or, he may not like either of them, or they may not be up to par with what he's expecting. So they may bring in someone out the waiver wire. But I want to get into the topic here of the Broncos did sign the new veteran kicker, Brett Maher. So source confirms Broncos have reached a 1-year deal with kicker Brett Maher, and he kicked for Sean Payton with the Saints back in 2021. Had a great season last year, as you guys may know, with the Cowboys until those yaps in the playoffs.
Yep.
And as you guys may remember, also he had that minicamp tryout with the Broncos in June. So, that original tryout with the Broncos was reportedly around the time that McManus was released, and Maher was viewed as the favorite for that vacant kicking gig. Great body of work. An NFL vet, started in about 54 games. Fry's only been in 3. And obviously, as I mentioned, there's familiarity with Payton. So the regular season with the Cowboys, he was great. I think he made 29 of 32 kicks, a little over 90%. 9 of 9 from 20 to 29 yards out. 5 of 5 from 30 to 39 yards out. 6 to 7 from 40 to 49 yards out, and an impressive 9 of 11 from 50 plus out. But the controversy stems from what we've seen lately and those yips that we saw against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I think it is some cause for concern. I'm looking at the overall body of work, Thomas, when it comes to Maher, the kicker, and it's been great. It's, in my mind, it's been better than what McManus has most recently been producing.
Right.
And I would say, that one, game in the postseason against the Bucks, I mean, that was just a bad day at the office for me. But looking at the whole body of work, I would say this is definitely an upgrade over McManus and what the Broncos need. And hopefully with Sean Payton's offense, we won't be seeing, a lot of field goals be kicking, more touchdowns, and then we'll see more of those PATs coming thereafter. So
That's right. That's
but
what
yeah, what's your
Williams
take
saying.
there? Oh yeah,
That's what
Williams
Williams
said,
saying
yeah.
right here. We don't need field goals. Extra points
Yes,
is all
Lord.
we need.
Yeah.
So my biggest issue, we can look at his body of work, right? He obviously was a pretty good kicker in the regular season. For me, you need a clutch kicker, and he wasn't. He failed pretty badly when it mattered most, right? In the playoffs, missing extra points. So that gives me, a little bit of pause for sure, just because I want the kicker to come in and make the kick when it matters, and that's what they're paid to do. They're not paid to rack up good percentage points all through the season and look good on paper. They're here to win the games when it matters most, and that's why I'm a little bit worried about this. But I'm mostly just worried about how it all transpired. Right? They released McManus with no plan. If they were going to release McManus, maybe take a shot at somebody in the draft, do something. They didn't really do that. Now they're kind of scrambling. They're bringing in a couple people that really isn't inspiring any confidence in Broncos country, for that matter. I mean, we just saw Todd asking, are they going to hunt for somebody that gets let go from when they cut down to 53? I mean, that it's possible. That would mean that both of them failed in training camp and they're out there scrambling again, to find somebody else to come kick. And, sometimes you can go in and you get a kicker off the street who works out well. We've seen it a few times here and there, but for the most part, you want a reliable kicker. You want somebody that can come in and really do it when it matters. And I'm a little bit worried about the kicking game. And I'll tell you, the last thing the Broncos country need is to have a couple losses because the kicker doesn't make a field goal. And then, they're on the outside looking in, needing help to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, and again, that is a valid concern of, when you're in the playoffs, when you need that kick to win the game and or take the lead, you want that kicker to come up clutch. But again, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see in this training camp battle how they compete and what Sean Payton does with them. And we got Michael Ronquillo coming in here again. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate you, my man. He says, kicker Brett Maher will bring great competition with Elliott Fry? Yes, I think he will. But again, we'll see what training camp yields from that. But I agree, definitely 100%, Michael.
Yeah, and that's the reason for the signing, right? Is to
Yeah,
create that training
the
camp
competition.
competition. See who comes out on top. But whoever comes out on top, we're still a little worried about. That's the
Right,
problem, right? Still a little bit worried.
right.
We
And
got
again,
Keith
it's
coming in saying the Broncos have added Brett Maher to the roster. I said that McManus cut was a bad idea. How many wins will our kickers cost us this upcoming season? Yeah, it was an odd move. I kind of knew that they were going to do it, right? Like he seemed like he was making more than he had, and he wasn't really earning that bigger payday as a kicker, a reliable kicker. But it was a weird move, right? Getting rid of him when they got rid of him. I already said that, but I hope none. I really hope that the kickers don't cost them any games, but it is a valid concern. I mean, we're talking about it right now. Is this kicker that they're going to land on going to come out and kick when it matters? And that's the big question mark right now. Neither one of them have proven that they're, capable of doing that so far. And maybe one of them will take off and, the past will be behind them and everything will be great. And who knows, but I hope it's none. But you watch that Super Bowl 50 run. Brandon McManus was a key to getting them into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. McManus was huge. He came up huge. So you can't overlook the value of that clutch kicker.
Thank you, Keith, for coming in. And I agree to an extent, Thomas and Keith. But Super Bowl 50 was eons ago. We were, I'm looking at it more from a what has Brandon McManus done for us lately?
Sure.
And the numbers just don't seem to be elite for me. So I agree in the sense that it was a bad idea when you're looking at it from retrospect of they may not have a plan after the McManus release. So I can see it from that regard, but we all saw it coming. Out above 50 yards on a field goal attempt. Again, it's a coin flip. You just don't know if he's going to make it or not. He's been more missed than hit for me lately over the past few seasons. So we had to upgrade just because the numbers just weren't where they were before in that Super Bowl 50 run. So, as far as answering your question of how many wins it will cost us, I don't think it's going to cost us many wins. I mean, the goal or the hope is that with Sean Payton and the Russell Wilson connections, we will be scoring more touchdowns. So this offense should be hopefully, in rhythm, in groove, a well-oiled machine to score those touchdowns to where as though, yes, I agree, extra points do matter. But hopefully we can, with the touchdowns being scored, we can start to ramp up the scoreboard. So I don't see us being compromised in the win column as much, but it still, leads me to believe that the plan after McManus should have been a little bit more well thought out.
Well, and the thing for me too is when they cut McManus, I was expecting something bigger to come back, right? Like they were making room for some other free agent to bring in, and they didn't really bring anybody exciting in, right? People were opining that it was going to be for Dalvin Cook or somebody else, but there really wasn't any big moves. So it was kind of like they cut him and then to free up money, and then nothing really happened with the money. I mean, I think they brought in Tyler Lancaster after, who's a journeyman kind of rotational defensive lineman, but really we were expecting a little bit more because of the cut, but it never really happened. So, and we got Michael coming back in talking about Robbie Gould, wants another shot in the NFL with a new NFL team. He's a reliable kicker. I mean, why not give him a shot too? Maybe he wants too much money. I don't know. It could be, but there are, there are kickers out there, and they're going to find out if either of these two are worth their weight, right? So we'll see.
Yep, and thank you, Mike, for coming back in with that. That was actually a name that I thought the Broncos would have considered. Robbie goes well above average kicker for me, and he would have definitely been great to kind of bring in competition for Fry. So, but
let's switch gears a little bit. We got David Youngkin coming in asking who will be the starting center. It's going to be Lloyd Cushenberry so
Mr.
far. I
Cushenberry.
mean, that's
It's
where all the
Cushenberry.
signs are pointing to it, right?
Yeah.
Because they really didn't make many moves to point otherwise. And like I've been saying, I feel like Sean Payton and that coaching staff liked what they saw, and they think that, coming out of college or something, think that he's the guy for them. It's possible. I would think that he'd have to have a pretty bad camp to lose it, and Kyle Fuller or even the rookie would have to have a very good camp in order to kind of supplant him early on. Sean Payton doesn't like to start the season with a rookie starting center. He did it when he had to, but I don't know if he really wants to go that route with especially a 7th round rookie. So it's going to be Cush, and I hope he can. I hope he can make that leap from in this year, make that leap that we were all expecting him to make the last few years that he just didn't make.
Yeah, I agree with Thomas. It's going to be Cushenberry, and again, I'm gonna say this as I've been saying before, in the sense that the Broncos didn't prioritize center just for that very reason. They took a flyer on Fuller from Seattle a little later in free agency. They didn't get Forsyth until the 7th round, so they are high on Cushenberry, and we'll see how it all unfolds in training camp. But Cushenberry is going to be that starting center unless training camp yields otherwise. I think also with Zach Strife coming in and with this coaching, they're going to try to put Cushenberry in those positions, to hold up at the point of attack and make those calls as your center should be. So, there's going to be there's going to be like a full education on what, Cushenberry needs to do as far as improving. But I think they saw what we all saw coming out of LSU. And I think the coaching staff says that we can leverage all of that and turn him into an average starting center. Because again, that's all we want at the end of the day. An average starting center to hold up at the point of attack.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and hopefully with the acquisitions, and hopefully Miner's stepping, getting better. Maybe those two will help him get better. Yeah, we'll see. I hope it's a well-oiled machine. Really, with offensive line, it comes down to how well they play together. Really, it's not individual performance for the most part. I mean, obviously it is to a certain extent, but if they're a well-oiled machine working well together, they can function together better. It will help everybody along that line. So let's hope that Ben Powers and Miners really help bring Cushenberry along. We got Phil McLaughlin coming in from Facebook. Thank you so much, Phil, for being here. We always appreciate it. Saying, good evening, Thomas, Ron, and Deacon Scott. If Moss doesn't beat out Mathis, do you think he will play slot beating out Williams? Buckham, Mile High Huddle for life. Well, Phil, I don't think he's going to beat out either one of them. I think Mathis is pretty much set at the corner opposite Surtain. He would have to really stumble for a rookie to beat him out. I like Moss, but I think his role is going to be special teams mostly to start, and then filling in, coming in once in a while. I think he's a good future for the future. A good player for the future. But Kwan Williams is an underrated player. I think he's a heck of a player. He played most of the season with a club on his hand, right, and still played at a pretty decent level. Mm-hmm. So I don't see him beating out either of them. If he does beat out Mathis, then that Mathis is having a pretty bad camp, so to speak. Like, he's struggling really badly. He's having a sophomore slump right away, and things aren't going well. But I don't think he's going to beat out Williams. He may take over that spot after Williams leaves. I think Williams is done after this year, but Williams is a good, very, very good player. If he can stay healthy and keep both hands free, I think he's going to be a pretty solid player for the Broncos. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, you actually took the point I was going to make of when Williams leaves, then expect Moss to come in and be that third corner. Right now, Phil, as of this year, it's going to be PS2, Mathis, and Williams. Again, I'm curious to see how Moss does perform in training camp, though. I'm expecting good things, but those will be your three corners starting on this roster.
Yeah. And we got David McIlrath coming in with super chat. Thank you so much for coming back in with another super chat. We really appreciate that support, David, as always. And he's calling it. He's saying Forsyth will start. He fell to the 7th. I agree with you that he fell. I totally agree with you. I think he's a better player than he is a tester. I think that he has a future in the NFL. I just don't know if he's going to be able to supplant Cushenberry early on. Maybe in midseason, if Cushenberry's struggling, maybe he will. But I don't think he's going to start right away. But if he does, that means he's played exceptionally well in camp and preseason, and they just couldn't ignore his abilities, which is a good thing.
Yeah, thank you, David, for coming in. But yeah, this year I don't see him starting this year. Now, next year potentially. We'll see how Cushenberry performs. If the team's not as high on Cushenberry going into next season, I can see Forsyth starting in the 2024 season, and or if Cushenberry does outkick his coverage and another team signs him and offers him more money, then I can see Forsyth also starting in 2024. But yeah, I would say the starting center in 2023 is going to be Laurie Cushenberry.
Gary Palmer, the legend's coming in with a super chat as well. Thank you for the support, Gary. Thanks for being here. Saying hi, Thomas, Ron, and Scott. We fans have trouble seeing Cush as center, but Sean sees it another way. He has the deciding vote. Go Broncos and Buckham. Yeah, Gary, that's what I've been saying. As soon as they didn't go out and address the center position with free agency, I wrote an article saying I think he sees something in Cushenberry that he liked, from afar or from a distance, right? Or when he was looking at him coming out of LSU, he liked him. And that's sometimes coaches they are that way. They think they can resurrect a career and they go ahead and try and do that. So you're hitting the nail on the head, Gary. It's he wants him to be the starting center, and he's gonna try it and see how it goes, at least early on. And the thing about Cushenberry, I'll say this: he has struggled. There's no doubt about it. He needs to get stronger. He has to hold up in the middle with those bull rushes and whatnot. But he was pretty bad coming in as a rookie, which starting as a rookie is tough. He didn't play very well at all, but the second year he played better, right? He did improve, not drastically. He wasn't, his trajectory wasn't huge, but he was kind of getting closer to that middle of the road type of center. And then last year, the coaching wasn't very good. And I know I'm making excuses and I don't want to, he has to get better, but the coaching wasn't very good on the offensive line. The offense wasn't very good. And, frankly, I think he didn't really fit that scheme very well, which, isn't a huge excuse, but if you're more comfortable in a different scheme. So there might've been some reasons why he kind of regressed again. So maybe through this, these new coaches and Sean Payton having a better offense, having better players around him, maybe he does make a bit of a leap. But either way, they need to prepare for the future, because even if he does make that leap, he's on a restricted free agent after the season. So they're going to have to they're going to have to hope that he plays well, and maybe they'll re-sign him, maybe they won't. So that's a big question mark. But I just hope he, like you said, Ron, I hope he gets into the, at least to the middle of the pack when it comes to centers, because like you said, that'll be enough, right, to hold up that line.
Yes, and Gary, thank you for your super chat. We appreciate you, buddy. And I agree, Gary. Again, they didn't prioritize it for a reason, and Sean Payton has his guy in mind for his scheme. And coming in with a new scheme, we can probably say that Cushenberry didn't fit the previous scheme, and Sean Payton does see him more with this scheme. And then, of course, if he gets in the weight room and with the coaching and tutelage of Strife, we can see a better Cushenberry. And again, I think that's what the team is banking on. But he just has to step up, and I think he's willing with this coaching staff, putting in the work to actually step up and be again that average starting center that we're wanting to be. But yeah, I agree.
Keith's coming in saying, "Give it up for Orange and Blue View." Yeah, thank you. Give it up for us. So,
Thank you.
subscribe and follow us. I forgot to turn on the banners here, but follow me at Thomas Hall NFL on Twitter. Follow Ron at Ron White NFL on Twitter. Ask us anything. But yeah, I mean, throw a like our way, whatever. We really appreciate it. But Keith's asking, I want your thoughts, predictions on Bowls season. He's getting little attention. And I think we've talked about this before, Ron. Maybe it was on one of my other shows. I can't remember. But we are talking about him kind of flying under the radar, right? Nobody's really talking about Bowles. They're just expecting him to come back and be a good player again, even though he really has only had 1 and maybe 1.5 years of really high level play, and then other thing hasn't been as good, right? And coming off an injury, we're expecting Bowles to be wonderful, but there should be some questions on that. Really, I mean, there really should. I think that they're going to plan for the future for his position. I don't think he's going to be around too much longer. So I think I don't know. He has to be. If he can be as good as he was 2 years ago, that they're fine. But if he struggles again, it's going to be a little bit rough for a bowl season. But I think he'll be serviceable. I don't think he's going to be known as one of the elite left tackles in the game, but he's going to be good enough to do what needs to be done along the offensive line. That's kind of my prediction. I know it's kind of lukewarm, but that's kind of my thoughts on Bowles, right? He's just never really impressed me that much. He's been adequate for the most part.
Interesting take. Yes. Thank you, Keith, for coming in. We appreciate you, buddy. And yeah, Bowles, in my opinion, Bowles has a lot to prove. Bowles still has a lot to prove. Now, again, yeah, that season about a few years ago, if he can get back to that level, I think that'll put the offensive line as a whole in great shape. But it's going to be contingent on how he comes back, from the injury, and how he holds up as well, in that left tackle position. But it's going to be hard, to see. Again, I think they are also planning, Thomas, to your point, for the future, because depending on how he performs this year, which again I think he's going to be at average level play, we probably won't see him next year. I think the Broncos are going to start to look to upgrade that left tackle position, just because that 1.5 season level of good play just isn't enough to warrant that long-term deal, at least in my opinion, for Denver to pay him out. So I do see them moving on after this season, or that's a potential option. But depending on how he comes back from injury, Keith, and with the help of McGlinchey there as well, and a new offensive line coach, I do see him at least providing that serviceable level play for this season.
I hope he's great. I really do. It's hard to predict that from Bowles. So yeah, hopefully he stays healthy. That's the big thing. He needs to stay healthy. So that's a big thing. I think he'll be good enough along that line, and so stay healthy and he'll be fine. We got Facebook user coming in. I think it's Linda. I think she said her name was Linda in another part of the chat. Maybe not. But saying, "Evening, gents. Do you see DJ Jones playing more the 1 or 3 technique?" Yeah, I think he's going to be the nose, right? Like he was last year, but with Mike Purcell being there next to him, I think they can kind of switch back and forth a little bit. I think he's going to be that nose for the most part. I think he plays it pretty well. And depending on how that rotation is and how Mike Purcell really steps up and plays, stays healthy is really what he needs to do. He could be filling in that role that Deshaun Williams was filling, until he left after this season. So I think there can be some rotational pieces. I think Wazirike can come in and play a little bit. He's big and strong. He might be able to come in and then you might see some rotation in there. But from what I understand, he's going to play the nose. But I mean, I'll see more when I'm out at training camp. See if they're kind of moving him around a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see what they do in training camp. And I agree, Thomas is going to do more of what he did last season. Play that nose I see him more at that position. So.
I want to say hi to Kathy. Hey, Kathy, I hope you're feeling better. Things are going well. Saying hi. She's saying hi, Thomas Scott, and everyone else. Bulls will be fine if the new O-line coach is able to work with the guy that has a learning disability. Cush either steps up or aside. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hit it, and that has been Bull's problem, right? He went through a lot of offensive line coaches. He did his best when he had a good teacher, right? A good teaching coach, and in Munchak. And then, he kind of faltered a little bit after that. But I really hope that Zach Strief can relate to the players well, coach, do a really good job, because it will definitely help Bulls. And you're right, Cush has to step up this year. I made him my dark horse candidate for being the surprise player of the year only because he has to. So thanks for that, Kathy, and appreciate you coming in.
Yep, thank you, Kathy, for coming in for that.
We got Todd saying Yoma, which is Wazirike, is not really shown much far. You're right. He really hasn't. And that's the problem. And that's a problem I've been talking about for a long time with this team, is the defensive line rotation needs to step up. They didn't do a lot to address it. They went out and got Zach Allen, which was good, to replace Draymond Jones, but they didn't do a lot. I know Tyler Lancaster is a fairly solid kind of rotational piece who was injured, missed all of last season. The young guys have to step up. Henningsen and Wazirike have to step up in order to have a good O-line rotation. I like both of them. I think they played fairly well when they played, but they were rookies, and they have to develop. And Henningsen actually, I think, played quite a bit more. So he might have a step up on Yoma, but yeah, you're right. They have to do something. They have to step up. So we'll see in training camp how that is. But if they don't, if you see Sean Payton go out and get another defensive lineman, a veteran, you'll know that those young guys didn't make that leap that they were hoping to make. What do you think?
Yeah,
Ron?
I agree. I think, yeah, I've seen more from Henningsen than Wazirike, and I actually like both of them for sure. But they in those rotational packages, they just have to step up on that line. But hopefully with this new coaching, and then hopefully with all the other pieces that they have with Zach Allen, we can start to see that. And I was going to mention the same thing in the sense of, if they, if we do see another signing come up, then that in camp, that one or two of them didn't perform as to be expected. So, but I'm hoping the best for both of them, because I actually like both of them coming out of college.
I'm going to give a shout out to Big Ern here. Ernie Mays coming in saying hello, Thomas and Ron and Scott. Go Broncos country. I know everybody's saying hi to Scott. He's out, not here. So it's just us. So if we miss, a Facebook stars or something, we really apologize. It's not as easy to flip through the chat and do all that and talk at the same time. I guess I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. But thanks for coming in tonight. Really appreciate it. And we've got Phil McLaughlin coming back in, of course, from Facebook. Thank you, Phil. He says, you guys think Gregory will play at least 75% of games this year. Sure would make a difference based on our depth. Jump in there, Ron. What do you think?
Phil, thank you for coming in. That is a very good question. Well, I hope he does. I really do hope that he can be available for all the games, because this edge depth, it's very thin. After him and Browning, of course, with the Frank Clark signing we have as well, it's good. But I'm hoping that Gregory can at least play 75% of games. It's just hard to say right now if it's going to happen, but I'm banking that he can stay healthy enough to be on the field to make that impact. Because when he's on the field, Phil, the game-changing plays that he can make are out of this world. And with Frank Clark, and then having these other edge people come up in rotational packages, I can see this defense kind of take that next level. But to say if he's going to be available to play 75% of the games, I'm hoping. I'm hoping. I just don't know for sure because
Yeah.
there's always something with him. Some sort of injury to make him miss games. But I'm hoping he can be there at least 75% of the time.
Yeah, if he's not, it's gonna be a massive, bust of a free agent
Yeah.
signing. I mean,
Yeah.
it just is. I didn't like it when it happened because he's never available, whether it's for suspension or injury, and if he can't play at least 75% of the games this year, he's not gonna be coming back. I guarantee it. The contract that they signed, with him gives him an out pretty much after this year without too much pain, so to speak. So if he's hurt again this year and he misses a ton of games, they're gonna have to go make some other decisions on pass rusher, right? Like they're gonna have to. Yeah, I'm not gonna count on it, right? Because he's never really there. He's never really around, and so I would be hopeful that he plays 75% of the games, and they need him to. They absolutely need him to, but I just can't count on it. It's just based on his history. He's just never available. And that's a huge waste of $50 million
Yeah.
signing him to that contract because he just hasn't been available. So, and that's the best ability that they say is availability, and he's just not. So, but he was very good when he was out there. Don't get me wrong. I think he can play the position really well. I wouldn't take that bet that he's going to be there for 75% of the games. I just wouldn't take it because he just hasn't proven to be able to do that. Thanks, Phil, for appreciate that.
And then we got Todd coming in here, kind of backing us up. Says, "Thank you, Todd." He says, "If Gregory plays 10 games, we should be very thankful."
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Say hi to Michaela, saying good evening, Broncos country. Hey, Michaela,
Hey,
how you
Michaela.
doing? Thanks for dropping in. We appreciate that. And let's see we got any more chats coming in. If not, we can wrap this up a little early. And Ernie is coming back in saying, Greg will be awesome if he doesn't get hurt.
Yes,
Absolutely. I mean,
absolutely, Ernie.
everybody's like, saw what he could do when he played, but he's just never there. So thanks, Ernie, for coming in and saying that. Really appreciate it. So
Thank you, Ernie. And then we got David Yonkin coming in here. Thank you, David. He says the only one I'm excited to see is Sean Payton on the sideline.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good one. I mean, he is must watch TV, and if you're actually at the game, you gotta you're always looking forward to seeing him. But yeah, I mean, obviously, that coach of that caliber, we're all excited to see what he can do on the sidelines. How he responds to certain calls and how he interacts with the players. It's going to be interesting to see. But I'm also looking forward to seeing, and I know you are when you get to training camp, Thomas, these new free agent signings. I would love to see Ben Powers, Mike McGlinchey. I'm more intrigued by seeing this revamped offensive line.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's coming right up. So if you're out there, I'm going to be out there at camp from August 1st, hopefully the 5th. It's tough getting tickets on the weekends, and it's they sold out really quickly. But come by, say hi. Luke Patterson and I will be out there. Luke will be out there the whole time. So if you want to say hi to him, say hi to him. But we'll be out there. We'll be bringing back some of the reports, telling you what we saw, and also. I'm going to be looking for the keys that I kind of came up with when I watched camp and what's kind of a predictor of success in the future. So go check those out. We got them all on Mile High Huddle. Ron's got a few articles out there right now on Mile High Huddle, the website. So go check those out. I've got some top 5 all-time articles out there. So yeah, go check them out. Appreciate everybody being in here. We've got some final thoughts from Michael Ronquillo coming in. As always, thank you, Michael, for the support. Your great support of Mile High Huddle and the show. We really, really appreciate it. Says great show tonight, Thomas and Ron, and Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos and Buckham. So thank you for that, Michael. Really, really appreciate that. But we got one more question here. I think we'll grab. It's Phil McLaughlin. Good question. Who will have the
Thank you,
most
Phil.
receiving yards this year? Ron, I'm gonna let you jump in there first.
Yes, this is a great question, Phil. I would say most receiving yards is going to be Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's my guy to get the most receiving yards. I say that just because you obviously Tim Patrick coming back from injury. I don't see Tim Patrick finding his groove until a little bit later on in the season. We saw the connection that Wilson and Judy had last year. And I still think Judy, you know, as great as he was last year in the past few seasons, he still has something to prove. And I think he'll definitely break out with being the receiver that has the most receiving yards this year for the Denver Broncos. So I'm calling Jerry Judy.
Well, I'm kind of with you on that. Jerry Judy, he seems to be the leading candidate to kind of break out, become a live up to his potential is what I should say.
Yep.
And I did a study a while back looking at his numbers. If he'd have had more targets, because what he does with his targets is just as good as a lot of these other top wide receivers, not as good as Justin Jefferson or some of the other, but right underneath there, right? So if he gets his targets, he's going to be able to produce yards with those targets. And so it's hard to say to vote against him, but I'm hoping that Courtland Sutton is that same guy that he was a few years ago and plays that kind of, I know that Sean Payton has done some great work, some bigger, wide receivers like he is. So you go back and look at the 7th round, steal that they got. I think he's their leading wide receiver, and I am drawing a blank on his name, and I'm sorry. He's long since retired. Big receiver who he used really well. And it'll come to me after the show's over, so I really apologize. But, with Michael Thomas, what he's able to do with those bigger receivers, if Courtland Sutton, and he's saying the right things, he's putting in the work. If he can kind of rekindle that and play up to what we've seen from some of these other big receivers with Sean Payton, he could be the one that leads the Broncos in reception yards and kind of get back onto that track that we all thought we would see him. So I'm going to go, I hate to bet against Jerry Judy. I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton at being that guy. And only because Tim Patrick's still recovering from a knee injury, right? I mean, he's supposedly recovered, but it takes a while to get back. So yes, thank you. Marcus Colson. Thank you for throwing that in the chat. Appreciate it. I was drawing a blank on it. But yes, one of the best steals in the 7th round, in the NFL. So that was good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. We got Todd's predicting both Sutton and Judy will get over 1,000 yards. That's awesome, and that means that Russell Wilson's throwing for over 4,000 for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, great. All right, folks. Yeah, let's wrap the show up. It's been fun. I really have enjoyed talking. I know we started off with kickers, and that's not always super fun and exciting to talk about, but we got into some good things. But anyway, we will be back next Saturday. So we'll have the camp will have started, right? So we'll have a couple days of camp in. So we'll start to see the reports, get to hear what Luke has to say when he's out there. So yeah, join us. We'll do a little training camp talk and just keep our fingers crossed for no injuries. But as always, like the show, check out Mile High Huddle. Look at the articles that are out there. They go into depth of a lot of things that are happening out there. So check it out. And so for me and for my co-host, Ron White, just want to say thank you very much for all the support tonight. Thank you for the conversation. And with that, we'll say good night and go Broncos.
Go Broncos.